My husband and I have been married for 8 years. Our oldest son is 6 years old and he brings us so much joy. We have always wanted to have another child, but for the past few years we have been very busy with work. It wasn't until I turned 34 that our careers gradually became stable. Our financial situation had also improved. So, we decided to have another child. We were very excited about this decision and looked forward to the arrival of our child. One night, with a pregnancy test in my hand, I told my husband the news of my pregnancy. Our faces were beaming with happiness. We decided to tell our family. The relatives expressed their blessings and joy. We also went to the hospital regularly for prenatal checkups. My belly slowly grew bigger and we looked forward to the arrival of our child even more. On the 3rd day of my son's birth, I left the hospital. For the next 5 days, I kept feeling a little unwell, but I couldn't pinpoint exactly what was wrong. My son rarely cried after birth and spent most of his time sleeping quietly. One night, I was sitting down to feed the baby. Shortly after I sat down, I suddenly felt a little lightheaded. I realized that I might not be feeling well, so I called my husband to come and carry the baby while I tried to go to bed to rest for a while. When I stood up, blood was running down my leg, which caused me to panic. My husband immediately called the emergency number and quickly helped me to the couch. He tried to calm me down and told me that an ambulance was on its way. I was filled with fear and despair. I began to cry loudly, and the chaos of my emotions made it impossible for me to control myself. My life was slowly fading away, and the feeling was overwhelmingly frightening. For me, the time seemed to become very long. Finally, I heard the siren of an ambulance. The paramedics carried me to the ambulance. My consciousness was fading. My husband held my hand tightly and kept giving me encouragement. When I closed my eyes, a wonderful sight appeared in my vision. I saw 3 gorgeous angels appear above me. They were wearing bright white robes. These 3 angels slowly began to approach me, and their presence made me feel peaceful. They were so close to me that I could reach out and touch their light. It was an experience beyond reality. The doctor kept trying to keep me awake. The doctor told me to hold on. After I opened my eyes, the angelic figures faded away. I was moved to a small room in the hospital. Slowly, I closed my eyes, confident that the doctors would do all they could to help me, despite not being sure what would happen next. The moment I closed my eyes, my thoughts became calm. Suddenly, an angel appeared in front of me. He placed his hand on my shoulder, and his gaze revealed an endless love. The angel asked me, "Do you choose to leave with me, or stay here?" I knew that if I chose to leave, it would mean that I would probably leave this world forever. At this point, I thought of my family. I knew that my leaving would bring them hurt and sadness, but they would start their lives over. They will slowly heal and find a new direction. The pain now is too much for me to bear, and I just want immediate relief. I chose to leave with the angels. The decision wasn't easy, but I knew it was the best choice I could make at the moment. The angel gently led me and carried my soul out of the hospital. I felt my pain fade away, and I was no longer trapped in the confines of my physical body. I felt free and at peace. The angel moved quickly upward with me. Although I didn't know where he was taking me, I believed he would take me to a better place, a place where there would be no more pain and worry. After flying for some time, a majestic building appeared in front of me, and it was the destination we were about to reach. The building was a rectangular shape surrounded by thick pillars. I saw 3 angels flying toward that place. I had seen them in the ambulance and was overwhelmed to see them again. I followed them and entered the interior of the building. I found the building to be a huge library. Inside the library, I met other people. I greeted them as if I had met a group of old friends and family. We shared our life stories with each other. The place is full of friendly atmosphere. In this library, we can learn a lot of knowledge that we can't learn on Earth. I was immersed in the pleasure of reading and learning. I came to the back door of the library, where a beautiful country road appeared. Flowers were blooming on both sides of the road. I followed the path all the way forward. After a while, a house appeared in front of my eyes. I heard laughter coming from the house, and I noticed a group of people strolling in the garden. I noticed that the door of the house was open. So I went inside. Upon entering, I immediately noticed that the room was filled with small children. Each child radiated innocence and their smiles were infectious. The house seemed to be a paradise for children. I could see the children playing in their own world. As I walked into another room, a child suddenly held my hand. In another corner, I saw a woman holding a baby. Her eyes revealed her endless love for her child as she sang a lullaby softly. Just at that moment, a grandmother came up to me. She smiled at me and gently asked, "Are you ready to stay here?" I thought for a moment and shook my head, indicating that I wasn't sure. She seemed to see right through me. In fact, she said softly, "You already have the answer inside you. You don't want to leave your child." Her words touched the softest part of my heart. I replied softly, "You are right, I don't want to leave my children. I can't imagine my life without them." The grandmother smiled and nodded as she continued, "A mother's love is a great force that gives us endless courage and strength. Your children need your company and care, and you will be more happy and satisfied as a result." I smiled at the grandmother and said, "Thank you for your understanding and encouragement. I have found the answer, and I will choose to go back." The grandmother gently held my hand and said, "You have made a wise choice and your child will appreciate your decision." The grandmother gave me a hug. Then she whispered, "Bless you, the child will bring you more happiness and joy." After leaving the house where the grandmother was, I continued to explore this magical place. I walked through a garden and a familiar face suddenly appeared in front of me. It was my cousin. In June 2013, I lost my cousin, and it was a heartbreaking moment. She was only 31 years old when she left us. She was a premature baby, so her health was never in good shape. Even though her health was never stable, she still had a generous and kind heart. One of my most vivid memories of her is her passion for animals. She always treated these helpless creatures with love. She often volunteered at animal shelters, doing what she could to help animals in need of care and shelter. This passion makes her happy. In January 2013, she found out that she had cervical cancer, which was certainly a heavy blow to her. Doctors performed a hysterectomy to control the disease. However, the cancer spread very quickly and put a huge strain on her life. By March, the doctors told her the disheartening news that even after chemotherapy and radiation, her chances of survival were not good. Despite her unpromising health, she continued to go to volunteer work every week. During an operation to rescue a stray dog, she was bitten by a stray dog. As her body resistance was already weak, this wound quickly became infected and led to the development of sepsis. On June 17, 2013, she left us. Her death was a great shock to all of us. It happened so suddenly that her family was completely unprepared for the funeral and had to postpone it for 2 weeks. Although my cousin and I had not been in touch for a long time, we had a very happy time, which made me feel especially sorry for her loss. My cousin grew up on a farm that used to be owned by my grandfather. Later, my uncle bought the farm and raised his 2 daughters there. I used to go to her house to play. Although I was 13 years older than my cousin, we really enjoyed playing together. We had many happy times on that farm. We ran in the fields together and chased dragonflies in the fields. As we got older, our contact gradually became less and less. The various responsibilities and busyness of life left us with little time to communicate. Now we surprisingly met again in this beautiful place. We hugged each other. I said to her excitedly, "I never forgot you, I always miss you." Now we have a chance to meet again, and it is so wonderful. My cousin shared her happy life here. She told me that this place can be a soothing and relaxing paradise for the soul. We talked for a long time here. Finally, my cousin reminded me that it was time to go back. When I opened my eyes again, I found my husband standing beside me, his eyes full of worry. I knew I had made my choice to return to Earth and get on with my life. A few days later, I left the hospital. When I returned home, I saw my little boy lying in his crib with an angelic smile on his face. At that moment, I felt an indescribable happiness. Only a mother can truly understand the satisfaction and joy. I want my son to grow up healthy. I was willing to give everything for him, to give him love and care. 3 months later, my husband suddenly asked me, "You seem to be a different person, more mature." However, I didn't answer his question, I just smiled a little. Over the years, I have learned to remain silent, especially about experiences that cannot be explained. I know that this story is too crazy for other people, and I wouldn't believe such a thing if I hadn't experienced it myself. What I went through was a supernatural experience. It was a personal growth and insight that I can't fully express in words. I have learned to remain calm and determined as I look at life's challenges with a more mature mind. Although I may have been like an overgrown child in the past, now, I am willing to take on more responsibility. In July 2015, we took a family vacation together at the beach, and this vacation was not easy for us. First of all, our whole family has a very busy work and school schedule, and it was hard to find a common gap. Everyone had their own work and school commitments. I own a small design firm and am the lead designer myself. I have a passion for creative design, and after years of study and struggle, I have managed to build my own business. I have a very busy schedule, and I work under a lot of pressure. My career has grown steadily, and I feel proud and satisfied. The day after I arrived at the beach, when I woke up, I felt some stabbing pains in my chest. As time went on, I noticed that it became more difficult to breathe, and the pain in my chest got progressively worse. I became worried and wasn't sure what was causing it. I thought it might be the result of not getting enough rest in the previous days. I decided to go to the local pharmacy in hopes of finding some pain relief medication. The lady at the pharmacy consulted me about my situation. After listening to my description, she expressed her concern about my symptoms. She recommended that I go to the emergency room for a complete checkup to make sure I did not have a serious health problem. She told me that the chest pain and difficulty breathing could be a symptom of some serious illness. I explained that I just didn't feel well rested and that the discomfort could be caused by fatigue. I thanked the lady for her concern and advice. I purchased some medications, hoping they would relieve the pain in my chest. I left the pharmacy with some hesitation in my mind, unsure if I should seek medical help. I decided to give myself some time and observe if my symptoms would improve. The landscape was filled with all kinds of beautiful wood carvings and artwork. My son was curious about these works of art. There were also many good restaurants in the scenic area. I didn't want to ruin my family's vacation. But after an hour, my pain began to increase, accompanied by an overwhelming sense of dread. I felt like I couldn't take the pain, and I told my husband that I was going to die today. I asked my husband to take me back to the hotel. My breathing became weaker and weaker. My husband realized that the situation was more serious than he thought, and he immediately called the emergency number to get professional help. It was all so horrible, and I felt like I was at the end of my life. All I could do was pray to God that if I was destined to leave, that He would take away my pain. The EMTs arrived quickly, and they rushed me to the hospital. In the hospital, time seemed to become a blur. My family constantly encouraged and comforted me. I appreciated their company, which kept me warm. Then, I was wheeled into the operating room. My emotions were filled with fear and uncertainty. As the anesthetic drugs were administered, I began to feel detached from the real world. After a while, I left my body and I could see myself lying on the hospital bed. Suddenly, I saw the figure of a man that I was sure was Jesus. He looked to be about 30 years old, with short brown hair and a brown beard. His face was soft and kind, full of compassion and wisdom. His eyes were deep and conveyed endless compassion. His complexion looked very healthy. He was wearing a simple white robe. He smiled at me, and his eyes were full of compassion. I felt a strong sense of love. All the pain and fear disappeared. Although he did not speak, his presence conveyed a sense of warmth and care. I understood that he had come to give me strength and courage. As Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder, a tunnel appeared before us. The walls of the tunnel took on brilliant colors, like shining gems. Each color shone with a unique light. The interior of the tunnel emanated a warm glow, as if inviting me. Jesus guided me into that tunnel, and we began to move quickly. After a while, the speed began to gradually slow down. We left the tunnel, and a bright light appeared in front of us. I felt its light penetrate my body and illuminate my heart. At the same time, I felt a strong sense of love and satisfaction. This experience was beyond my comprehension. It was a deep spiritual experience. In that moment, I understood the power of love and the meaning of existence. I sensed the presence of other souls around me. We could not see each other directly, but there was a wonderful connection. There was no verbal communication between us, yet there was a strong tacit understanding. This connection transcended the confines of the physical world. We share our experiences and growth with each other. Here, each person's life is recorded in a unique way. I came across a small card that recorded everything about me from birth to now. This card, though small, carried a huge amount of information. I saw how I had grown up. Every important moment was carefully recorded. The information on the card is not simply a description of words, but vivid pictures and videos. I saw the good moments, such as when I learned to ride a bike, and the happy times with my family. At the same time, I also saw those difficult moments. The experiences that had caused me pain and helplessness were truly recorded on this card. One of the incidents I remember particularly well was when I was about 15 years old. I lied to my parents and said that my school had organized an art exhibition and I really wanted to participate. There were some costs involved in attending the event, including admission and transportation. In fact, I just wanted to go and buy a skateboard that I liked. And I was afraid that my parents would not approve of it, so I chose to lie to them. I knew it was dishonest, but I chose to lie to my parents in order to get what I craved. When I look back on it all, I feel so ashamed. My mother did not expose my lies at the time. My mother did not rebuke me. She treated my behavior with tolerance and understanding. Jesus did not judge my behavior. I said to Jesus that I regret the lie I had told. It had brought harm to my family and to myself. I knew I had lied to them and let them down. I felt very guilty and guilt-ridden. Jesus replied gently, "I understand the pain and regret in your heart. You have realized your mistake and sincerely repented. I have come to accept you and offer you love and forgiveness." I knew that in His presence I could confess my faults and confusion without reservation. Finally, Jesus told me that I must now go back. I pleaded with Jesus to let me stay here. I wanted to enjoy this peace and happiness forever. Jesus explained to me that I still had many important things to learn and experience on earth. Jesus gently held my hand. He said gently, "This experience is a special gift that will give you wisdom and courage. I will always be with you, giving you strength and guidance. This experience will be your motivation and precious memories to move forward. I understand that I need to return to earth to continue my journey and use my strength to create positive change." When Jesus placed His hand on my forehead, it was as if I traveled through time and space. And the scene before me began to gradually change. I saw my older self. My hair had turned silvery white, and my face was filled with joy and contentment. Standing beside me were my grandchildren, who were happily playing. I looked at the smiles of my grandchildren, and what a beautiful scene it was. Jesus gently held my hand and a warm energy spread throughout my body. The scene around me became blurred again, like a layer of fog enveloping me. Jesus said to me, "Child, it is time to return to earth. I will personally take you back to the hospital. I will always be with you, giving you the strength and courage to face the journey ahead." I began to move slowly downward. The hospital on the ground gradually became clear. I felt myself re-entering the real world. I closed my eyes and felt the merging of my soul with my body. After a while, my consciousness rejoined my body. When I opened my eyes, I found myself lying in a hospital bed. Just then, the doctor came into my room with a delighted expression on his face. He looked at me and said, "You are so lucky." I asked the doctor what had happened. The doctor explained that I had experienced a severe form of cardiac arrest and had been diagnosed with sinus arrest. He told me that sinus arrest is an extremely dangerous type of cardiac arrest and that only a very small percentage of people successfully recover from it. I was shocked by this news. And I could not imagine that I had experienced such a serious danger. At the same time, I felt grateful and thankful. I understood that the meeting with Jesus was not a hallucination, but a surreal experience. He gave me the strength and courage to overcome the sudden hardship. The nurse came into the room and told me that it is a miracle that only 2% of people recover from sinus arrest. I realized that I had been given a second chance and that this opportunity was so valuable. During a thorough examination at the hospital, the doctor found a small aneurysm on the left side of my heart. The doctor recommended that I undergo regular checkups to ensure that my condition would not deteriorate further. Since then, I have been going to the hospital for regular checkups. Each checkup made me very nervous. Fortunately, however, the results of each test showed no further deterioration. This made me feel very fortunate. People around me often told me how lucky I was. I know that it is not all luck. I know it is the grace and blessing of God. I firmly believe that God has always been there for me and that He has given me the strength and courage to face challenges and protected me from illness. From that day on, I have gained a deeper understanding of the preciousness of life. I decided to spend each day in a more positive way. Later, I took my children to help out at a nearby nursing home every month. Through this action, I hope to teach my children how to care for others and to cultivate their kindness. Every time we arrived at the nursing home, my children talked with the elderly people there. This experience has changed me and my family. We know how to care for others more.